The space station called Velori hung in the darkness between stars. It was old and dirty and full of criminals. The metal walls were rusted. The air smelled bad. The lights flickered on and off. This was the kind of place where people came to hide from the law. This was the kind of place where lives were bought and sold like vegetables at a market dot in a bar called The Void's End. A creature named Solver was getting very drunk. Solver was a creth. He had 6 legs and compound eyes like an insect. His skin was hard and green. Right now, his eyes were cloudy from too much alcohol. He could barely stand on his legs. Solvar was a merchant. He traveled through space and bought things cheap in one place and sold them expensive in another place. Sometimes he bought legal things. Sometimes he bought illegal things. Today, he had bought something terrible in a cargo container near the station's docking bay. 16 small creatures waited in the darkness. They were called Mirani. They were about the size of human children. Their skin was pale blue, and they could glow with soft light. But right now, they were not glowing. They sat in the dark container and waited to learn who would own them next. The Mirani had once lived on a beautiful world. Their planet had forests that sang and oceans that sparkled with colors no human had ever seen. But that world was gone now. A great war had destroyed it. The Mirani people had scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. Many had died. Many had been captured and sold as slaves. These 16 were among the last survivors of their family group, called Clutch Savarin. Their leader was a young female named Kathy. She was 12 years old in human terms. She had watched her mother die. She had watched her world burn. She had kept these 15 others alive through 4 different owners. Now she sat in the darkness and waited to see what would happen next. Back in the bar, Solvar ordered another drink. He had a problem. He had lost money gambling. He needed cash quickly, or he would lose his ship. The 16 Marini in his cargo hold were worth good money to the right buyer. But finding the right buyer took time, and Solvar did not have time. A large reptilian creature approached his table. This was Draal, a Torvaxian crime boss. The Torvaxians were known throughout the galaxy as cruel and greedy. Draal had heard about Solvar's cargo. "I will give you 12,000 credits for the Mirani," Draal said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Solvar laughed and almost fell off his seat. "Too low," he said. "They are worth much more. Good workers, already trained to obey. The Syndicate's mining operations would pay twice that." Draal's eyes narrowed. "Then sell them to the Syndicate yourself." "I do not have time," Solvar admitted. The alcohol made him honest. "I need money now." Draal smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Then you will take what I offer." At the bar, a human woman turned around on her seat. She had been listening to the conversation. She was in her mid-40s with short gray hair and tired eyes. Her hands were rough from years of mechanical work. Her jacket was old and patched many times. On the shoulder was a faded symbol from Earth's colonial fleet, a military force that no longer existed. Her name was Mira Vance, and she was the captain of a small cargo ship called the Vagrant's Promise. "I will give you a drink," she said to Solvar. Everyone in the bar went quiet. Draal turned to look at her with confusion. Solvar's antennae twitched. "A drink?" Solvar repeated. "You offer me a drink for 16 slaves?" Mira reached under the bar and pulled out a bottle. The glass was old and dusty. The liquid inside was amber-colored, like honey mixed with gold. The label was written by hand in a language that no translator could read. "This is whiskey," Myra said. "It was made on Earth, in a place called Tennessee. It was aged for 30 years in oak barrels. This bottle was made before the collapse." The bar went even more quiet. Everyone knew about the collapse. 50 years ago, Earth had become uninhabitable. War and pollution had destroyed the human homeworld. The humans had scattered across the galaxy, just like the Mirani. But before the collapse, humans had made many wonderful things. And the most wonderful things were their drinks thought pre-collapse Earth alcohol was legendary. Collectors would pay fortunes for a single bottle. A 30-year Tennessee whiskey from before the collapse was worth more than a small starship. Salvar's compound eyes went wide. His greed was stronger than his common sense. His antennae trembled with excitement. "How do I know it is real?" he asked. Mira opened the bottle. The smell that came out was rich and warm and complex. It smelled like wood and vanilla and smoke and something else that could not be named. It smelled like history. Salvar breathed deep. His whole body shook with desire. "Done," he said. "We have a deal." He grabbed the bottle like it was made of gold. Then he transferred the cargo container codes to Myra's device. The 16 Marine now belonged to her. Drawl stepped forward. His reptilian face was twisted with anger. "You cannot do this." Those Mirani were promised to the Syndicate. "They were promised nothing," Myra said calmly. "Salvar owned them. Salvar sold them. The transaction is complete. You do not understand who you are dealing with, human." Myra looked at him. Her eyes were steady and cold. "I understand perfectly. Do you?" There was something in her voice that made Drawl hesitate. Something old and dangerous. But then he remembered that she was just one human woman alone, with no weapons visible. "This is not over," he said. He turned to his guards and spoke quietly. "Follow her. Find out where she takes the cargo. We will get them back." Myra walked out of the bar without looking back. She moved through the station's dirty corridors toward the docking bay. Her footsteps were steady and calm. She did not seem worried that 6 armed criminals were following her in his seat. Salvar opened the bottle and poured himself a drink. The whiskey was beautiful. It was everything he had hoped it would be. But as he drank, a strange feeling grew in his stomach. It was not the alcohol. It was something else. It felt like he had made a terrible mistake. It felt like he had traded something precious for something worthless. He shook the feeling away and poured another drink. The Mirani were just cargo. The human woman was just a fool with too much money and not enough sense. He was wrong on both counts. The Vagrant's Promise was not a beautiful ship. She was old and worn and covered with patches and repairs. Her paint was faded. Her engines made strange noises. Some of her lights did not work properly. But she was fast, and she was strong, and she was home. Mira led the 16 Mirani through the airlock and into the main corridor. The ship was small by galactic standards. It had been built as a cargo hauler, designed to carry goods between colonies. But Mira had spent years modifying it. She had added sleeping quarters and a kitchen and a medical bay. She had turned a cold machine into a warm living space. The Mirani looked around with curious eyes. They had spent most of their lives in cargo containers and slave quarters. They had forgotten what a real home looked like. "It is not much," Myra said. "But it is safe. You can sleep in the passenger quarters. There are blankets and pillows. The water in the washroom is clean. And the food dispenser is fully stocked." "Food dispenser?" one of the younger Marini asked. Her name was Tella, and she was about 8 years old in human terms. "A machine that makes food," Myra explained. "You press a button and it gives you something to eat. You can have as much as you want." Tella's eyes went wide. As much as she wanted. She had never heard such words before. In her entire life, she had only been given the minimum food needed to keep her alive and working. The journey to New Cascadia would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks through unpatrolled space, far from the trade routes and the law. It was dangerous territory, but it was also free territory. No one would come looking for them here. On the first night, Mira gathered all the Mirani in the common room. She wanted to learn their names. She wanted to understand who they were. There was Kethy, the eldest, who had kept the others alive through impossible hardship. She was serious and suspicious, but underneath her hard shell, there was a fierce love for her people. There was Ren, a male who had once been an apprentice engineer on the Marine homeworld. He still remembered how the great machines worked. His hands always moved when he talked, as if he was building something invisible in the air. There was little Oshi, the youngest, who had been born in captivity and had never seen a sky or felt grass beneath her feet. She was curious about everything and afraid of nothing. And there were the others. Tilla, who loved stories. Ven, who was quiet and watchful. Mora and Kayla, twin sisters who finished each other's sentences. Each of them had a story. Each of them had lost something precious. Each of them had survived as the days passed. Myra taught them about humanity. Not the stories they had heard from their owners. Not the propaganda about violent conquerors and dangerous soldiers. She told them the real story. Earth was our homeworld, she said one evening as the stars streamed past the windows. It was beautiful. Blue oceans and green forests and white mountains. We lived there for thousands of years. We built cities and roads and machines. We made art and music and stories. What happened to it? Kethy asked. She was always the one who asked the difficult questions. We broke it, Myra said honestly. We fought too many wars. We poisoned the air and the water. We took too much and gave too little. By the time we realized what we had done, it was too late. You destroyed your own world? Yes, it was our greatest failure. 50 years ago, we had to leave. The survivors scattered across the galaxy. We lost everything. Our governments, our cultures, our history. Billions of people died. Billions more became refugees, wandering from place to place, looking for somewhere that would accept them. The Mirani were silent. They understood this story. It was their story too. But we did not give up, Mira continued. That is the thing about humans. We do not know how to give up. Even when everything is lost, even when there is no logical reason to hope, we keep fighting. We keep building. We keep looking for each other. Why? Kethy asked. Myra thought about the question for a long time before answering. Because we are social creatures, she said finally. We need each other. A human alone is weak and scared and easy to break. But humans together, humans who trust each other and work together, we become something stronger. We become family. Family, Kethy repeated. The word felt strange in her mouth. She had lost her family when her world burned. Family is not just about blood, Myra said. Family is about choice. Family is about finding people who matter to you and deciding to protect them no matter what. On New Cascadia, we have built a new family. 12,000 people from 100 different backgrounds, all working together, all protecting each other. And you want us to be part of this family? I want to give you the choice. That is all. The choice to belong somewhere. The choice to build something new. The choice to be more than just survivors. Little Oshi had crawled into Myra's lap during the conversation. Now she looked up at the human woman with her large, dark eyes. What is a sky? She asked. Myra smiled. A sky is the space between the ground and the stars. When you stand on a planet and look up, you see the sky. On New Cascadia, the sky is blue during the day and full of stars at night. There are clouds that float through it like white ships sailing on an invisible ocean. It sounds beautiful. It is. And soon you will see it for yourself. Oshi's glow brightened. She snuggled closer to Myra's warmth and closed her eyes. Over the following days, the Mirani began to change. Their glow grew stronger. Their eyes grew brighter. They laughed more and feared less. The children started to play games in the corridors of the ship. The adults started to talk about the future instead of the past. Ren spent hours in the engine room with Myra, learning how the ship worked. His engineering instincts came back quickly. By the end of the first week, he had improved the efficiency of the power system by 15%. Kathy remained cautious. She watched everything and trusted nothing. But even she began to relax. One night, Mira found her standing at the observation window, looking out at the stars. "My mother told me stories about the stars," Kathy said quietly. "She said that every star was a home waiting to be discovered. She said that someday, our people would spread across the galaxy and fill it with light." She sounds wise. She was. She died protecting us during the evacuation. She held off the soldiers long enough for us to escape. I still remember her voice, telling us to run, telling us to live. Mira stood beside her in silence. She understood that kind of grief. She had her own ghosts. "Do you think she would be proud of you?" Mira asked. Kathy was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "I do not know. I have done terrible things to survive. I have lied and stolen and betrayed. I have done whatever it took to keep my people alive. I am not sure that makes me someone to be proud of." "Listen to me," Myra said firmly. "You kept 16 people alive through hell. You carried them on your shoulders when they could not walk. You gave them hope when there was none. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to be honored." Kathy's glow flickered. A single tear rolled down her pale blue cheek. "I am so tired," she whispered. "I have been strong for so long. I do not know how to stop." Myra put her arm around the young Morena's shoulders. "You do not have to be strong alone anymore," she said. "That is what family means. We carry each other. When you are tired, others will carry you. And when they are tired, you will carry them. That is how we survive. That is how we heal." Kathy leaned into her embrace. Her glow steadied and grew warm. Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance. And somewhere ahead, invisible but growing closer with every passing hour, a small blue planet waited to welcome them home. The cargo container was in the worst part of the docking bay. The lights here were broken. Water dripped from old pipes. The air was cold and smelled like rust and oil. Mira Vance walked through the shadows until she found the container number that matched her code. She stopped in front of the metal door. Behind her, she knew that Draal's guards were watching from the darkness. She did not care about them yet. First, she needed to see what was inside. She entered the code. The door hissed and slowly opened. The smell that came out was bad. It smelled like too many bodies in too small a space. It smelled like fear and despair and lost hope. Mira stepped inside. The container was dark, but she could see shapes moving in the shadows. Small shapes. The Morini were pressed against the back wall, huddled together like frightened animals. She had expected them to be dim. She had read about Morini biology during her years in deep space. Their bodies produced light naturally, like some fish on old Earth. When they were happy, they glowed bright. When they were sad, they glowed soft. When they had given up all hope, they stopped glowing completely. These Morini were barely visible. Their light was almost gone. The eldest one stepped forward. She was small, reaching only to Myra's chest. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were large and dark. She moved with the careful control of someone who had learned to expect pain. "Another owner," the young Morini said. Her voice was flat and empty. "What work will you need from us? We are good workers. We do not eat much food. We do not complain. We learn quickly." Myra felt something twist in her chest. She recognized that voice. It was the voice of someone who had learned to survive by making themselves useful. It was the voice of someone who had forgotten that they had any value beyond their labor. She crouched down so that her eyes were level with the young Mirini's eyes. "What is your name?" The question seemed to confuse the Mirini. Owners did not usually ask for names. "I am called Kethy," she said finally. "I speak for Clutch Severin. These are the last of us." "Kethy," Myra repeated. "I am Myra, and I need you to understand something important. I am not your owner." Kethy's large eyes blinked. "You purchased us. I purchased your freedom. There is a difference. I do not understand." Myra sighed. She had expected this. Freedom was a strange concept to someone who had never experienced it. It was like trying to explain color to someone who had been blind since birth. "Let me ask you a question," Myra said. "If you could go anywhere in the galaxy, where would you go?" Kethy was silent for a long moment. Behind her, the other Mirini watched with confused expressions. The youngest among them, a tiny creature that Mira guessed was barely more than a baby, made a soft chirping sound. "There is nowhere," Kethy said finally. "Our homeworld is gone. Our people are scattered or dead. We have no legal standing in 47 star systems. Freedom for us means only one thing. It means dying slowly in the cold instead of dying quickly under an owner's hand. At least with an owner, we have food and shelter." "What if there was somewhere else?" Myra asked. "What if there was a place where you could live without an owner? A place where you could decide for yourself what your life means?" "Such a place does not exist." Mira pulled a small device from her pocket. She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed a planet. The planet was blue and green, with white clouds floating over its surface. It looked peaceful. It looked alive. "This is New Cascadia," Myra said. "It is a human colony in the Outer Rim, far from the Galactic Council, far from the Syndicate, far from anyone who thinks that people can be bought and sold." Kethy stared at the hologram. Her dim glow flickered slightly. "Why would humans accept us?" She asked. "We are not human. We are Mirini. We are different. On New Cascadia, we do not care about different. We care about people. If you can think and feel and dream, then you are people. It does not matter what shape your body is. It does not matter where you were born." This sounds like a trick. Owners have lied to us before. They promised good things and gave us only pain. Myra nodded. She understood this suspicion. Trust was hard to build and easy to break. "I am not offering you charity," she said. "I am offering you a deal. New Cascadia needs people. We need teachers and farmers and engineers. We need anyone who is willing to work hard and help build something new. In exchange, you get a home. You get safety. You get to decide what your life means. Nobody decides for you. Ever again." Kethy was quiet for a long time. Behind her, the other Mirini had moved closer. They were listening carefully. The tiny one, the baby, had crawled forward until it was almost touching Myra's knee. "What if we say no?" Kethy asked. "Then I take you somewhere safe and let you go. You can try to survive on your own. I will not force you to come with me. That is not how freedom works." Kethy looked back at her people. They were thin and tired and scared. The youngest ones did not even know what hope looked like. The oldest ones had forgotten, but somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark remained. Somewhere deep inside, they remembered what it felt like to dream of something better. Kethy turned back to Myra. Her glow brightened just a little bit. "Not much, but enough. We will come with you," she said. "We will see this new Cascadia. But if you are lying to us, human, I will find a way to make you regret it." Myra smiled. It was a real smile, the first one she had smiled in a long time. "Fair enough," she said. She stood up and reached out her hand. It was a human gesture of friendship. Kethy did not understand it, but she reached out her own small hand anyway. Their fingers touched Dot behind them. The cargo container door exploded inward. Metal flew through the air. Smoke filled the space. Myra pushed Kathy down and covered her body with her own as debris scattered around them. When the smoke cleared, Drawl stood in the doorway. 6 armed guards stood behind him. Their weapons were pointed at Mira and the Mireni. "Did you really think," Drawl said, "that I would let you walk away with my property?" Myra stood up slowly. Her body was between the guards and the Mireni. She did not look afraid. She looked calm. She looked like someone who had been in this situation before. "They are not your property," she said. "They are mine, and I am about to set them free." Drawl laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You are one human woman with no weapons. What exactly do you think you are going to do?" Myra looked at him. Her eyes were cold and hard like ice. "I'm going to give you one chance to walk away," she said. "One chance. Take it. Because if you do not, I'm going to show you why the Galactic Council banned humans from military service." Drawl stopped laughing. For just a moment, fear flickered across his reptilian face. But then he pushed the fear aside. She was just one human. What could one human do? He was about to find out. Drawl stepped through the broken door of the cargo container. His guards spread out behind him, their weapons raised. The Mireni pressed themselves against the back wall, their dim glow flickering with terror. Only Kathy remained near Mira, too proud to show her fear. "You mentioned the ban," Drawl said. His voice was mocking. "Do you think I am afraid of old stories? The human military ban was 50 years ago. Whatever soldiers did back then, you are not one of them. You are just a cargo ship captain with a soft heart and no common sense." Myra did not move. She stood perfectly still, her hands hanging loose at her sides. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, taking in every detail. 6 guards. 3 on the left, 3 on the right. 2 had energy weapons. 4 had projectile weapons. The one closest to her was nervous. His hands were shaking slightly. "Let me tell you a story," Myra said. Her voice was calm and quiet. 50 years ago, there was a mining colony on a moon called Varus 7. 300 humans lived there. Miners, engineers, families, children. "I do not care about your history lessons," Drawl growled. "You should." Myra continued, as if he had not spoken. The Korthax Empire decided they wanted that moon. They sent a fleet of 12 warships and 2,000 soldiers. The colony had no military. They had mining equipment and construction tools. Everyone expected them to surrender or die. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. He had heard this story before. "The colony held for 3 months, Myra said. 3 months against a force that should have crushed them in 3 hours. Do you know how they did it?" Drawl did not answer. "They did not fight fair," Myra said. "Humans never fight fair. We cannot afford to. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural weapons or armor or special abilities. What we have is this." She tapped her head. "We adapt. We improvise. We find the weakness in every enemy, and we exploit it without mercy." The Korthax soldiers on Varus 7 were stronger and better armed. But they had never faced an enemy who would collapse tunnels on their own positions just to take out a squad. They had never faced an enemy who would poison their own water supply because they knew which antidotes to take. They had never faced an enemy who kept fighting after losing everything, who turned defeat into opportunity and death into a weapon. Drawl's eyes narrowed. "You are trying to frighten me. I am trying to warn you. After Varus 7, the Galactic Council decided that humans were too dangerous. They banned us from organized military service. They thought that would make the galaxy safer. but all it did was scatter us. Now there are millions of humans across the galaxy. Some of us are farmers. Some of us are merchants. And some of us remember everything we learned in the wars. Enough talk. Drawl raised his hand. Kill her. The nervous guard fired first. Mira was already moving. She had seen his finger tighten on the trigger before he even made the decision to shoot. The energy bolt passed through the space where she had been standing and hit the wall behind her dot. What happened next took 11 seconds. Myra grabbed the nervous guard's arm and twisted. The weapon fired again, but this time it hit the guard beside him. She used the first guard's body as a shield, pushing forward into the group on the left. A projectile weapon fired, and she ducked beneath it while driving her elbow into a throat. She fought like water. She fought like fire. She moved through the guards like they were standing still. Every movement was efficient. Every strike was precise. She used their own weapons against them. She used their own bodies as obstacles. When one guard tried to grab her, she redirected his momentum and threw him into two others. The Marini watched with wide eyes. They had never seen anything like this. They had seen violence before, but it had always been brutal and clumsy. This was different. This was almost beautiful. Mira moved like a dancer, performing a deadly routine that she had practiced 1,000 times in 11 seconds. 6 guards were on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were groaning in pain. One was not moving at all. Mira stood in the center of them, barely breathing hard. There was a small cut on her cheek, but she did not seem to notice it. Drawl had not moved. He stood in the doorway, his reptilian face frozen in shock. He had seen many fights in his life. He had watched gladiators battle in the syndicate arenas. He had seen trained soldiers execute perfect military maneuvers. He had never seen anything like this. Mira walked toward him. Her footsteps were steady and slow. Drawl reached for the weapon at his belt, but before he could touch it, Myra's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. She twisted, and he fell to his knees with a cry of pain. She stood over him, her boot pressing down on his throat. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to remind him that she could. Humans have a saying, she said quietly. We do not start fights. We finish them. Drawl tried to speak, but her boot pressed harder, cutting off his voice. Listen carefully, Myra continued. These Marini are under my protection now. They are going to a place called New Cascadia. And if anyone comes looking for them, anyone at all, they will find exactly what you found tonight. She leaned down closer to his face. Her eyes were cold and empty like the void between stars. But that is not the part you should be worried about. The part you should be worried about is this. Humans remember. We remember every wrong done to us. We remember every name, every face, every crime. And someday, when we have rebuilt enough, when we have gathered enough strength, we are going to come back. We are going to find every slaver, every criminal, every monster who bought and sold innocent people like property. And we are going to make them answer for what they did. She released him and stepped back. Drawl gasped for air, his hand clutching his throat. Go back to your syndicate, Myra said. Tell them what happened here. Tell them the Marini are gone. And tell them that the humans are watching. Drawl scrambled to his feet. He did not look at his fallen guards. He did not threaten or curse. He simply ran. He ran as fast as his reptilian legs could carry him, and he did not look back. Myra watched him go. Then she turned to face the Marini. They were glowing. Not brightly, but more than before. The tiny one, the baby, was glowing brightest of all. It made a sound that might have been laughter. Kefi stepped forward. Her large eyes were filled with something that might have been wonder. You could have killed them all, she said. Why did you let them live? Myra shrugged. Dead men cannot deliver messages. I want the Syndicate to know what happened here. I want them to be afraid. Are all humans like you?" Myra smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "No," she said. "Most humans are kind and gentle. They build things and help people and try to make the galaxy a little bit better. But when someone threatens the people we care about, we become something else. Something that the galaxy learned to fear a long time ago." She held out her hand to Kathy. "Come on. My ship is waiting. It is time to go home." Kathy took her hand. Behind her, the other Morene followed. They walked out of the cargo container together, stepping over the bodies of the fallen guards. The Valori station watched them go in silence. And in the dark corners of the station, creatures whispered to each other about what had happened. They whispered about the human woman who had bought slaves with a bottle of whiskey. They whispered about the fight that lasted 11 seconds. And they whispered about the cold promise in her eyes when she spoke about the future. New Cascadia appeared on the view screen like a jewel floating in the darkness. It was smaller than Earth had been, but it was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, with 2 green continents reaching up from the water. White clouds drifted across the sky like slow dreams. The Mirani gathered at the observation window, pressing close to see their new home. Their combined glow filled the room with soft, warm light. Even Kathy, who tried so hard to hide her emotions, was glowing brighter than Myra had ever seen. Little Oshi stood at the front, her small hands pressed flat against the glass. She had been born in a dark cargo container. She had never seen anything larger than a space station. Now she was looking at an entire world. "It is so big," she whispered. "How can anything be so big?" "Wait until you see it from the ground," Myra said. "It goes on forever in every direction. You can walk for days and never reach the end." "I want to walk for days," Oshi said with complete seriousness. "I want to see everything." The vagrant's promise descended through the atmosphere. The Mirani watched as the blue sky wrapped around them, as the clouds rushed past like white rivers, as the green land below grew larger and more detailed. They saw forests and fields and lakes that sparkled in the sunlight. The landing field was on the edge of the main settlement. It was not a fancy place. The buildings were simple and practical, made from prefabricated materials and local stone. But there were gardens growing beside the houses and children playing in the streets. It looked like a place where people lived and worked and loved, and there were people waiting for them. Hundreds of people had gathered at the landing field. They stood in groups and families, watching the ship come down. They were humans of all ages and backgrounds, old and young, tall and short. Different colors, different faces, different stories. They were holding signs. Mira had seen this tradition before, but it still made her heart warm. The signs were simple and handmade, with words written in bright colors. "Welcome home. New friends or family. We are glad you are here." The ship touched down with a gentle thump. The engines powered off. For a moment, everything was silent. "Are you ready?" Myra asked. Kathy looked at her people. 16 survivors of a dead world, standing together, glowing with nervous hope. They had come so far. They had suffered so much. And now they were standing at the edge of something new. "We are ready," Kathy said. The cargo ramp lowered, and sunlight flooded into the ship. Real sunlight, warm and golden, not the cold artificial light of space stations and cargo holds. Oshi gasped and covered her eyes, then slowly lowered her hands as they adjusted. Kathy walked down the ramp first. She had always gone first. It was her duty to face danger before the others. But this time, there was no danger waiting for her. There was only an old human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "Welcome to New Cascadia," the woman said. "I am Governor Chun. We are honored to have you." Kathy did not know how to respond. No one had ever said they were honored by her presence. She had always been cargo, property, a problem to be solved, or a resource to be used. "I do not understand," she said. "Why would you do this for us? We have nothing. We cannot pay you. We are only refugees." Governor Chun smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind of smile that came from somewhere deep inside. "Let me tell you something about this colony," she said. "Most of the people here are the children or grandchildren of refugees. When Earth died, our families had nowhere to go. They wandered from system to system, looking for a place that would accept them. They were turned away again and again. Called dangerous, called useless, called too many and too much trouble." She gestured at the crowd behind her. But there were others who helped them. Other species, other colonies, other people who remembered what it was like to lose everything. They gave our families food and shelter and hope, not because they expected something in return, but because it was the right thing to do. So you help us because others helped you. We help you because that is who we choose to be. We help you because someday you will be strong enough to help others. And the chain continues on and on, across the galaxy and across the years. That is how we heal the universe. One act of kindness at a time. Kathy felt something break inside her chest. Not a bad breaking, like a bone or a spirit. A good breaking, like a wall that had been standing for too long. She had spent so many years being hard and careful and suspicious. She had forgotten what it felt like to trust. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She did not try to hide them. "Thank you," she said. It was not enough. The words were too small for what she was feeling, but they were all she had. Behind her, the other Mireni were walking down the ramp. Humans moved forward to greet them. Some shook hands. Some bowed. Some simply smiled and made space. The children were fascinated by each other. Human children stared at the glowing Mireni, and Mireni children stared at the strange soft-skinned humans. Oshi tugged at Governor Chen's sleeve. The old woman looked down at her. "Is it true that I can walk for days?" Oshi asked. Governor Chen laughed. "It is true. You can walk in any direction, as far as you want. Nobody will stop you. Nobody will tell you where to go." Oshi's glow brightened until she was almost too bright to look at directly. She made a sound that was pure joy, and then she ran. She ran across the landing field, her small feet touching real grass for the first time in her life. She ran toward the trees at the edge of the settlement, her glow leaving a trail of light behind her like a comet. Two human children ran after her, laughing and calling for her to wait. Mira watched them go. She was standing at the top of the ramp, her arms crossed, a smile on her tired face. Ran had already found a group of human engineers and was talking excitedly about power systems. The twin sisters Mora and Kayla were being led toward the settlement school by a young teacher. Tilla was asking questions about everything she saw, her words tumbling over each other faster than anyone could answer. Kathy walked back up the ramp and stood beside Mira. "What will you do now?" Kathy asked. "What I always do," Mira said. "Fix my ship. Stock up on supplies. Head back out into the black. There are more of us out there. More Mireni, scattered across the galaxy. Slaves and refugees and lost ones who do not know that this place exists." Myra looked at her. "Is that a request?" "It is a fact. You may do with it what you wish." Myra was quiet for a long moment. She looked out at the settlement, at the humans and Mireni mixing together, at the children playing and the adults talking, at the new family being born. "I was tired," she said softly. "Before I found you, I was thinking about stopping. Packing the ship and staying somewhere quiet and letting someone else carry the weight. And now? Now, I remember why I started doing this in the first place. You asked me once if all humans were like me. I said no. But the truth is more complicated than that. Every human has the capacity to be like this. Every human has the capacity to fight for something beyond themselves. We just need to be reminded sometimes. She turned to face Kathy. You reminded me. All of you. When I saw your lights flickering in that dark container, when I saw that you had not given up despite everything, I remembered what matters. So, thank you. Kathy's glow pulsed softly. Thank you for seeing us. For seeing us as people instead of cargo. That is the easiest thing in the world, Myra said. The hard part is getting others to see it too. She started walking down the ramp toward her ship's external access panels. But I am going to keep trying, she called back. One at a time, one world at a time, one stubborn act of kindness at a time. Until there is no more cargo with eyes. Until every person in the galaxy is free. Kathy watched her go. Then she turned and walked toward her new home. The sun was warm on her skin. The grass was soft under her feet. The air smelled like growing things and possibility. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear Oshi laughing Dot in the days that followed. The Moraine of Clutch Savarin planted their first garden. They learned their first human words. They built their first homes with their own hands. And slowly, carefully, like flowers opening after a long winter, they began to glow again. A drunken merchant named Salvar would spend the rest of his life wondering why a bottle of whiskey had never tasted as good as the moment he bought it. A crime boss named Drawl would report to his syndicate that the Moraine were lost, protected by humans too stubborn to be reasoned with. Dot and Captain Mira Vance would fly back into the darkness between the stars, searching for more lights that needed saving, because that was what humans did. They found broken things and made them whole. They found lonely people and gave them family. They found darkness and filled it with light, one stubborn act of kindness at a time.